Okay, we're live. Sorry about that. We were just in shock over electricity bills. But welcome to the Business Boardcast. I'm Nikki Larkin. I'm the Managing Director of Grudge Accountants, and I am delighted that I have got Mike Ames here with me. He's looking, actually, with that light behind you, look almost angelic. So welcome, Mike.
Yeah, great to be here, actually. Really looking forward to this subject as well, because we get asked this question a lot, and I think it's really important. So to have a platform to talk about it is brilliant. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, pleasure. Yes, so today, for those that, if it's your first time watching, it's a tight ship of 30 minutes. We go through the subject thoroughly, but we are open to questions throughout if you're watching on the live broadcast. So please do pop into the chat. Just say hi so we know that it's working, and do put up your questions, because what we're talking today is about how to hand over clients without losing the client or any of the revenue, because we don't like that. It's not a good thing, is it? So loads of reasons to talk about that. So let's start. Mike, so you've built, sold several businesses, really successful businesses. You're perfect for this because you will have been through this process hundreds of times of handing over clients. So can you explain to me, what's the benefit of handing over a client? Why should we do it?
Okay, well, three reasons really, Nikki. The first reason is connected with the series of broadcasts you're doing, really, which is about succession. And if you want to just take a step back in readiness for your exit from the business, or perhaps you're readying the business to be sold, maybe that's your way out. Either of those situations, it's not good to have clients that are have a strong and close dependence upon you, because if you're trying to edge your way out, they just keep ringing you up because that you're their person. So that really doesn't work at all. And having been through a couple of business sales, the last thing you want when you come to sell is when they do their due diligence and they discover that you're a really key person in terms of management of these clients, especially the more valuable ones. So that's the first reason. The second reason really is to do with scalability. So if you aren't thinking of exiting the business, but you want to grow it, and you've reached saturation point, so you can't possibly manage another client, and yet you're the person that brings most of the clients in. So clearly you've got to get rid of some of the older clients to leave some space to go and win some new ones. And the third reason, rather interestingly, is if you're of a mind to develop the people around you, to develop your team, to give them a chance to step up, part of that process could be to let them have some of your clients, perhaps because they're not capable of winning them on their own, or perhaps you've got so many clients, you can do that. But it's part of their development. So there's plenty of reasons to let clients go. And I think it's a skill, as you said, that you really have to develop, because if you get it wrong, that is going to cost you money one way or the other, for sure.
Absolutely. And those are all really good reasons for handing over clients. And even, the initial, even if you've been very reluctant to, even just the initial trying to do a little bit of it, you need to have a break occasionally. So you need to at least have somebody to cover for you if you're having time off. So that can sometimes, if you're really thinking, oh, no, they're my clients, that could be your first little step of the process, couldn't it? With trying it out for holiday cover.
Yeah, this point of client ownership is quite an interesting one, Nikki, because if you're the person that wins a client, or you were approached by somebody to see if you'd be their supplier, whatever it is that you do, then you obviously have a bond to them. And there is a kind of an inherent ownership thing. It's like, that's my client, really. It's like, that's my car. Don't drive my car. Don't change the seat position in my car, as Mrs. Ames tends to do. I know, right? I have a little button. Every time I put it back to the way it should be for me. It never quite goes back to the way it should. But the point is that you have to break that mentality, because if you don't, you're not developing that scalable kind of mentality to move your business forward. And you're certainly not developing an exit strategy, right? So you have to break that. Those clients are the firm's clients. They're not your clients, even if it happens to be your firm.
Absolutely. And I do keep reminding people, they are, for us, Gorange clients. They're not, they're not the payroll clients or the accounts clients. They're Gorange clients, and we all have a responsibility for them. So the next step then, so you've identified, so you've persuaded the person that it is a good idea to hand over some or all of their clients. What are we actually then looking for? Who should we hand over our valued clients to? Who's the ideal client manager?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because it's weird, when you make a decision to let a client go. So you think, well, okay, or if they're small clients, like a batch or a clutch of clients, let them go. It's almost like making the decision to sell your house. It's like, I love this house, but I think we'll move. Right, I want to be out. It's almost like, well, okay, I've made that decision now. I just want it to happen. And that can often cause you to select the wrong person to hand over to, which ultimately, again, if you do this wrong, it will cost you money. So the first thing to say is that whoever you hand over to has to be willing to take them on. In other words, if you try and force a relationship onto somebody when they don't really want to do it, then that's going to cause some difficulties, and nobody wants that. So the first conversation has to be around, well, I'd like you to have these clients, would you be prepared to talk about that? Closely allied to that, of course, is, have you got the time? Because if you're getting rid of people because you don't have the time, but they don't have time either, this is not good. That's not going to make the situation any better. It's just going to cause people to be stressed out. It almost certainly will result in a drop in your service levels, almost certainly. Even if you don't touch base with your clients very often, they'll notice the difference, because the new person is overwhelmed as it is, and this is just going to make things worse. So first is, are they willing to do it? Is it something they want to move into? Secondly, have they got the time? And the third one, obviously, is, have they got the ability? Managing a relationship isn't, although we manage relationships all the time in our personal lives, our families and friends, we're not managing to make money or look after them in the sense of they could leave and go somewhere else. Well, like your son comes in and says, well, I've had a really bad kind of mothering experience, so I'm leaving. I'm going down the road. Not going to happen, is it? If they're going to stay. So there's a whole bunch of new things that sit on top of your basic human relationship management skills that you need to be put in place, not least of which, to be honest, is organization. I'm sure you don't have a contact schedule for your parents or for your brother or sister or something. So I haven't spoken to so and so, but I'll give them a ring. That is not the way in which to do really high level and extreme client care. If you want to be considered the first choice supplier for a client, your client care has to be very good. And to be very good, it has to be organized. And a lot of people, quite frankly, don't know how to do that. So it's really important that they do. And I think as well that the last thing, we can unpack some of these if you want, Nikki, but the last thing is chemistry, which we were chatting about this on air, weren't we? And before we came on, sorry. And you can judge that a person will be a good match for another person. It kind of seems right. Similar interests, similar age, whatever, similar sense of humor. But only when you actually implement the exchange can you see whether it's going to work. And if it's not going to work, I think you have to own up, be honest about that, and hand them over to someone else. Because if the chemistry isn't there, almost certainly the relationship will suffer as a result.
Indeed. Yes. And also, so yeah, we were talking about that before, and you're right, sometimes it's good for them to have some common ground, whether it's an interest or, children of the similar age or something or other. But conversely, often they're using your services because of something that's not in them. So if they're not an organized person, you need, well, not obviously you'd expect all client managers to be organized, but there's sometimes they're looking in their client manager to have an attribute that they just don't have anyway. So it is sometimes a little bit of an opposite attract that is needed as well.
I know professional relationship managers who aren't very well organized. I mean, this is their job. and they
Okay,
don't use
perhaps
CRM.
I was
Right?
a bit too nice about them then.
Yeah. Perhaps you were, but they don't use CRM. They've got no. If you're not making money from somebody, I'm not really interested in you. If I think there's a chance to make some money, then suddenly I'll be all over you like a cheap suit. And that's not relationship management. Relationship management is defined by what you do with a client when there's no work.
Yes.
So it's not what you do when there is work. That's different. That's transactional, and you're trying to get something through or make something work or whatever. True client care is what you do when there's no work. And very few people are that motivated, especially if they're short of time, to do very much at all. And it's a shame because there's an awful lot you can do with the modern tools, things like social media, for example, where literally a 10 minutes in the morning where you can just comment on someone's LinkedIn post or like it or send them a little message. So I saw this, thought of you. Silly little things. The research tells us that's as good in many cases, certainly as a long email, and in many cases as a short telephone call. It has the same kind of effect on somebody in terms of a release of whatever it is, dopamine, I think. So, you can do quite a lot, but no, don't do any of that. If there's no money, I'm not interested. So
Yeah.
these are dangerous signs to look out for, really. And it's worthwhile putting effort in to get that right before you start to ship things out to other people.
Yeah, and that sort of fits into what you've said before to me many times, about it's good to be phoning the client when you've got no agenda, just how are you? You're not phoning to sell something or tell them. It's just a pure just how are you call, and that can be just so valuable.
I mean, it is, because imagine if you've got a friend, maybe you do have a friend who only rings you when they want something. How does that make you feel about them? It's like, oh, my brother's just rung me. Oh, what did he want? Because every time he rings, he wants something. It changes the relationship. And I think with friends and family, to a certain extent, we put up with it. Certainly with family, we would. But with friends as well, perhaps. But with clients, we don't. That's not, that's not how it works. So you really do have to think that through. And of course, if someone doesn't have that naturally in them, you can put that into people. You can train people to do that. But mostly it's about giving them the tools, making sure they understand the importance of it, because it is important, and making sure they've got the time. And quite frankly, if you don't have time, then chances are you're understaffed, which is a completely different conversation, obviously. But it could mean that you really need to cull out some of your lower level or cheaper, less valuable clients, cut them out so that you don't have to manage them, or put them onto electronic management, which we'll talk about in a minute for small businesses.
Yeah.
By the way, could I just ask,
Yes.
people watching this, if you could put into the comments whether your clients are predominantly small or large? Are they going to be, small SME type clients, or are they going to be large clients, corporates or whatever? Just be interested to see if people could put that in to the comments for us to have a look at.
Definitely. Just pop it in the comments and we'll have a look in a moment. The other thing that just went through my head on the ideal client manager as well, and it's something that I have seen for my own firm works much better, is when you are bringing in a client manager and it's clearly defined, here is your clients. It's been very carefully, or you're coming in and you're only going to do new clients and then you build them up. Because sometimes when you've got existing staff and you're saying, okay, Alicia, I know you're already busy, but here's another client. It doesn't work. Sorry, Alicia, you are fabulous if you're listening. But, it's so you need to have, the new person on the block, Ben coming in. Great. He's got blank canvas. And so then only for Alicia, you only then give her the new clients if some of her clients have retired or she has successfully already transitioned some of hers off others. Because that is very difficult. I mean, it sounds really basic, but when you're a fast growing business, it's very easy to then be all the time really busy. So it has got, you really have got to be thinking, is it the right person? And it's not because they're the best person, because they're the best person and probably already really busy.
Well, we don't have time to do this today because this is about handing over. But what I would say on client care, the best client care system that you can get is it's what's called a 3-tier contact regime, and it's got 3 tiers to it, and you would have different flavors of that contact regime according to the value of the client to you. So the more valuable clients would get tier 1, which is face to face, and tier 2, which is ad hoc, probably telephone, email, that kind of thing, some social media. And tier 3, of course, is email, some kind of email newsletter or structure, which is going to keep people aware that you exist. Well, the less valuable of your clients get more of tier 2 and tier 3, and the very, very low value clients just get tier 3. So
Yeah.
you can manage any number of clients. What you can't do is manage all your clients equally.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
you need to judge that as you go through, for sure.
So we've said we've talked about a lot of positive things, but what obstacles can happen? What things can go wrong in this process?
Well, there's only really 2, to be honest. You pick the wrong person for the reasons that we said. They don't want to do it. They haven't got the time. They haven't got the skills. That there's not really a specific reason, but you just pick the wrong person, and it doesn't quite work out because of that. But that's pretty obvious usually, because you'll monitor it, as we'll talk about in a second. You'll monitor the situation for a while. If the situation's not working out and you can't fix it, then you need to back out, pick someone else, and start again. What's more worrying, though, is that you effectively abdicate the relationship rather than delegate the relationship. And the difference really is timing. So if you've made the decision, do you know what, I really want to let this client go now, and you say, well, okay, I didn't want to, but now you've persuaded me to do it. Right, let's get rid of them then. Let's move them on. And there's almost a rush, really, and you do it too quickly, and you don't really think it through. And if we've got time, I think we'd probably have just a quick story on this. This cost me, this decision that I made and didn't do it properly, cost me several £1 million a year in business. We had a very large client, and the situation was I'd managed it. In fact, I'd won it in the first place, built it up. So I'd been in charge of it. There'd been a team around me, obviously, looking after this client, but I'd been the main person. Handed it fully over to someone in my team. And my responsibility then was to go and see the head of resource. So they managed the recruitment facility for the whole business. And I went to see them once a quarter. I looked at the stats, at the KPIs. The KPIs were good. We did everything we were contracted to do. It all looked good. The numbers were okay. We'd spend about 10 minutes on that. Then we'd go for lunch, have a super lunch. But what I didn't know was that things weren't right under the hood. And he retired, head of resource retired. They got a new person in, and she was very good. She rang me up pretty much first week and said, look, I'm going to look at everything. Come and see me in about 4 or 5 weeks. Got the call, went to see her, took all my papers in and everything. Maybe we could do more for them. And she sacked me on the spot. She said, we're closing the contract with you. We'd rather not deal with you anymore, which I was utterly floored by this. I mean, it was not what I was expecting at all, because I'm blithering on about the KPIs, and she said, I can still see her now with the finger up, Michael, no, it's not about the KPIs. Our people don't like dealing with your people, and that's it. So it's going to finish. And it turned out that, yeah, we were hitting the targets. Okay. So when I looked at those numbers, it was good. But the way in which the guy that was running it was treating the key hirers was very bad, breaking promises, talking down to people, just treating them badly, really. So we got the results, but it was almost in spite of itself. And if I'd have taken the trouble to have looked under the hood and see what the clients thought about what we were doing and got that feedback, I could have intercepted that while it was an issue, before it became a problem, ultimately before it became a crisis, which cost me that client site. So my advice to you is to give your clients a voice, VOTC, and perhaps if we get a few moments at the end, I'll just talk about that as well, because it's really important.
Absolutely. So I think there might be a problem with the comments thing because it's not coming through, but I know that from people booked on, that it was a mix of there was some in there, some businesses that have quite a few SMEs, as clients, but there were some in there as well that do have more corporate type clients as well. So it was quite an even sprinkling.
Press the wrong button. Sorry about that. That's me. I used to be technical, you know.
That thing's working.
It's all gone. Yeah. Sorry about that, everyone.
That's okay. I'm driving.
I know. Yeah. It's old habits die hard. I'm so sorry, Nikki.
My thing on the driving thing is if the radio station gets changed. I like LBC, so if I know my other half's been in and put it on some other funny station, it's not right. Not right. Okay, so that's talking about there was obstacles. So positively, so we know what obstacles that we're going to try and try to avoid. But you've got a really good process, haven't you? So of how you can actually do it really, really well. So talk me through that, or share that with the viewers.
It's real quick and it's real simple and it works, right? If you do it in the way that we're going to talk about now, then it will work for you. Let's start with how you would do medium to large value clients, right? Because they're the most complex and there's the most damage if they go, or if you mess up the relationship, it's going to cost you more money. So there's 3 steps really. Step number 1 is the introduction. So I'm still your person. I'm still your relationship manager, your whatever it is that you are to them. So I'm still here, but I'm obviously not here all the time. I take holidays. Occasionally I'm at the office. And also we're very busy. We've been very successful, which is great. So to make sure that we don't diminish the service levels to you in any way, shape or form, let me introduce Fred or Frida, because they're going to be my number 2. During the introduction phase, all you need to do really is make sure that that person is included on emails as a CC. If you're going to have a Zoom meeting, which we didn't have in the old days, we had face-to-face, but Zoom now, that person sits on it. Doesn't say a lot, but that person is there because you're beginning to get this person, make them become familiar with the person that you're handing over to. Also gives you an opportunity to see whether there could be, any conflict or whether the chemistry is there or not. That's phase 1. Dead simple. It's not that difficult. You naturally must have chosen the right person and spoke to them and blah, 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 and all the things we talked about earlier. The second phase is the transition from me being the lead, and this is mine to support, to this person is the lead and I'm in support. Now, quite frankly, the easiest way to do this is to start it and be subtle about it. So your job really is to not be around as much as you were. Someone rings in for you, they don't get you, they get so-and-so. Oh, hi there. Yeah, look, Thingy Bob's in a meeting or he's not in today or whatever. Maybe I can help, because I'm obviously clued in as to the account. And give them an opportunity to prove themselves, give them a chance to actually add value and begin to build that relationship for themselves. Now, typically that period should go on for several months. I would say probably 3 months, truth be told. Some people do it for 6. You'd have to see how the relationship goes and how many opportunities they have to interact, right? So you can tell as the relationship warms up. Now, if you're lucky, what will happen is more and more when the client rings in, they'll actually ask for your Fred or Frida as opposed to you, and that's great. But if they don't, then you move into the 3rd stage, which is the completion. And the completion is basically to have a meeting face-to-face preferably, or perhaps something over Zoom or Teams. And essentially it's, look, as you know, you've been dealing with so-and-so and I'm here. And this is a key message now. This is something that we've used for years. And it really does, I think, resonate with a lot of clients, is that you are managed here. You are supported by a team, not a person. That's the way it is with us, because if you're only supported by a person, if that person is saturated or not there or leaves or gets run over by a bus, then we're going to let you down, and we don't want to do that. So you've always been managed by a team. However, because of the way in which things are here, so-and-so, Fred or Frida, will be your lead contact from now on. He or she has been supporting you anyway, so that should be no problem. What I'm going to be is your account director. So I'm going to be your escalation point if you are not happy about anything that you're getting. And I'm going to keep in touch with you once or twice a year, going to take you for a bit of lunch or whatever it is that you do. So I'm always there. I'll always know what's going to go on in the client, but the day-to-day activities will be with someone else because I can't support you in the way that you deserve. Right? It's that simple. Now, you can use different words, and obviously it's done over a longer period of time, and the conversations are longer than just a couple of minutes that I've just used here. But that's the sentiment. Here's so-and-so, work with so-and-so, so-and-so is your main contact from now on, but I'm still here. And I remember, it strikes me, I'm much older than pretty much everybody else watching this broadcast, I'd imagine. But back in the day with Blue Peter, I remember when I think it was Valerie Singleton was being eased out. She decided to retire, and they brought in Leslie Judd, who was a presenter, and we were all outraged because all of us had only ever known the three of them. And they said, no, Valerie's not going anywhere. She's still here. And then Leslie Judd came in, and then after a while, it was, look, Valerie's doing special projects for us, and she'd do these features. And then Valerie disappeared. But by then, we'd already got used to Leslie Judd, and we were fine. Everyone had moved on. It's just that people don't like change. So you minimize the impact of that change by making it easy, making it comfortable, and extending it over a long period of time.
We've had a question come in. Sorry, but
sure.
Sorry, I'm thinking we're having a pause, but
yeah, sure.
Let me try this one. So you've done that. But then what do you do if a client asks to go back to you being their client manager?
Well, first of all, I'd say the majority of them kind of do that, either very forcefully or hint that they would like it. You have to make a decision, really. There's a reason that they want that, usually. And the reason is that the person you've given them isn't doing what it is that you thought that they would do. I mean, it couldn't be the client's just an awkward cuss. And if you're the MD of the business, say, and they're the MD, they're and deal with a lackey, they deal with you. What you have to do then is you really have to push the account directorship. I am still here. I am still your account director, but I am so overstretched now because we've been very successful that our service levels will plummet if it's me that you have on a day-to-day basis. So you are supported by a team, not an individual. I am part of that team, but on a day-to-day basis, you've got so-and-so. Now, if so-and-so isn't delivering what you want, or if there's a problem with so-and-so, we'll deal with that. We don't expect you to have someone in this organization who is not exactly delivering the results that you want. However, that's the way it has to be. And you have no choice. What a lot of people will do is fold and just back off. Big mistake. Big mistake. You really, and you can do it. I've handed over literally millions of pounds worth of clients. And in many cases, these clients were people I've been out. The 90s was a different time, right? So out drinking and doing the things that we did in those days, playing golf and poncing around and all the rest of it. And yeah, I still had to say, well, yeah, but you're going to have to deal with so-and-so now. And they just get used to it after a while. And also, one last thing on this, elongate the handover period so it's very gentle. Don't do it too quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, because that's something that we get sometimes, that they want to... They want to work with the top person or whatever.
And they still are. They still are. Yeah. But not on a day-to-day basis, yeah.
I've been increasingly explaining, well, actually, I'm hiring people, they're actually much better than me in that particular area. So they are the person to go to. They've got far more experience. Yes, this might be my business, but I've hired specialists in these areas because they are the specialists, and therefore they are much better for your particular requirements. So, but yeah, sometimes it's a bit of a tricky conversation, but it can be done. So we've only got like a minute or two left. So let's just recap over your process. So if I check that I've got it right. So was I listening, Mike?
We'll see.
Let's see. Right. How do I successfully transfer my client to a new client manager? First of all, I introduce my client to one or more people and introduce, this is now your team.
Yeah.
Lovely client. Step one. Step 2, deputize. So start getting one of those team members to be the main contact for more and more of those things. So they're getting much more
become
used
familiar, but you familiarise them. They just get used to dealing with that person, seeing them.
Absolutely. So they're like, and then it gives them the opportunity to prove themselves that, oh yeah, actually, I'll just go and phone Guy for that question because he knows what he's talking about rather than Nikki, who will actually only then go and asking Guy myself anyway.
Yeah.
And then step 3, so you've really cracked it when there's a full final exchange.
Yeah, you close it down and say, from now on, this is the situation. And by then, it should just be very easy. You know, when it just, if you've done it properly, it won't be as hard as people think. If they cut it rough, it's probably because one of the steps hasn't worked very well, or they're not happy with the person that you've chosen.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, that's really good practical steps. We always try to be as practical as possible for people. So really good examples. And so hopefully that really helps some of you. If you would like to ask Mike any specific questions or ask for some guidance on this, do contact him. He's all over LinkedIn and Twitter, all over it. So
just put my name into Google, you'll be fine. Yes.
Yeah, you'll find him. Absolutely. So thank you very much for your time today, Mike. Thank you. And listeners, thank you very much for listening and watching, whether it's live or through our YouTube or LinkedIn repeats. So have a lovely weekend, Mike.
Thank you for having me on. And yes, brilliant. Thank you. And you too. Thank you.
Beautiful weather. I'm very excited. I'll be getting out in the garden, as I'm sure you would probably be too. So next week, just to let you know, next week we're talking about employment status. So that will be about IR35, about are you self-employed or employed, and the tax consequences for you. So it's not just for you, but also as a business. Because if you're having any contractors, you need to understand that. So yes, Guy says next week it's him. So for Guy fans out there, Guy will be there giving you some of his sage guidance. Oh, thanks, Nick. Great advice as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to click on that, but thank you, Nick. So all the things about employment status next week. But for now, have a lovely weekend. Thank you once again, Mike, and cheerio.